Hello and welcome to Mystic Temple. I am Goddess Iman, Light Guardian Goddess Iman. And for everyone joining us today, this is the LG Talk. And just a bit of information before we begin. The Light Guardians are divinely chosen by the Cosmic Collective Consciousness. And the Cosmic Collective Consciousness is multiple streams of consciousness that come together as one and write the Book of Rashida through the Divine Mother Monica Bay. They also provide additional guidance and wisdom to uplift humanity. So the Light Guardians are divinely chosen to walk alongside the Divine Mother Monica Bay and directly assist with the mission of uplifting humanity as we continue ushering in this new era of spiritual awakening and enlightenment worldwide. So we will be having these LG Talks monthly, where you'll hear from one of the Light Guardians as we share information, important messages related to the Book of Rashida, messages that we are downloading, that we're feeling, and of course, messages that are divinely timed. And now I introduce Light Guardian Ebony, who is running our LG Talk for today.
Thank you, Goddess Iman, and hello, everybody, and thank you for joining. I'm very excited. I hate to say I've been a little nervous because I don't want to let y'all down, but I'm super excited about just talking to you today about your soul's evolution and how that pertains to past life regression and past life trauma. Because things that we've experienced in past lives, it has a habit of following us, throughout any other lives that we live. So I want to start off by saying that you can be your biggest op because you hear things, you know things, you sense things, and you ignore those things because the world has convinced you that it's crazy, that it's wrong, that it's demonic. And to admit those things would be you admitting that you're crazy or that you're witchy or that you're demonic or something else that doesn't deserve respect. So some of us cut ourselves off from that divine part of ourselves so that we can be accepted by people outside of ourselves. Now, how crazy is that? But it happens every single day. And used to be me. I'm sure it used to be some of you. And then you have the second part of that, because some of us accept the divine part of ourselves, but only in private, never out loud. Why? Because we're afraid of losing the people that we're closest to. And isn't it funny how certain people get to live out loud and find joy and happiness while shunning someone else for living out loud and finding that same joy and happiness? And when you deny yourself, you give the people who would judge you a profound power over your life and how you live it. And there's no joy in that. Absolutely not. There is absolutely no joy in that. The Book of Rashida entry written on the 9th of December in 2017 says, the dying ones of us will be reborn, and thus the cycle continues as we create and become what will be, what is. Together, we will show the world what it's made of and tell all the truth of what it can be. It will become what it needs to become, unfolding to the senses and the degree of opacity. Tell them now who sent them, who sent me. We, all of us, we are here to change the very fabric of which they rely on, to create a new beginning, to reach the light that belongs to us all. Happy is the one who truly sees himself or herself for who he or she is, who they are, who we are. We're all one. And I quote that particular passage because in each cycle of our lifetimes, we are becoming, and we're given the chance to ascend into our higher self. We are given the chance to be reborn into different circumstances, a different body, dimension, planet, gender, species. And yet, some of us carry past life trauma into each new life. And it may look different from what you experienced before, But when you go back and question that existence, you will see the parallel to your current timeline. Have you ever had déjà vu? Because I've come to the realization that sometimes déjà vu is something that you experienced in a past life that was showing them what was going to happen to you in this life. I've been here before. I've seen that before. I've smelled that before. One of your past selves, they didn't necessarily experience what you experienced, but they saw it for you. That's you remembering what you saw way back then. And sometimes habits formed in past lives do follow us into our current lives. And once you know what those habits are in this timeline, you're able to redeem your soul. You're able to work on those things because now you're aware of it. You're consciously aware of it. I've had clients who noticed that in every past life we went to, they were lonely. They may have had money, they may have had nice things, but they were all lonely, and they were all working and working and working to provide for their families. And some of them felt like that's all I ever do is provide for them. No one provides for me. Some of them didn't even want to be here anymore in their lifetime. They didn't want to be here anymore, but they felt like they couldn't go because they had people to take care of, people to take care of, people depending on them. And I always ask my clients, what about what you've witnessed is relevant to the life that you're living today? And that person told me, I work all the time and I never spend time with my family. I never spend time with anyone. And sometimes I feel like nobody's taking care of me. So now you're aware of that. Now you're aware of it. You can work to change that. You can work a little less. You can spend a little more time with your family. You can do the things that you need to do to make sure that your outcome is better in each life going forward. I've had clients who, in past lives, several of them had suicidal tendencies and ideation. And I'm sorry, that's a trigger. I should have done a trigger warning. But some of them have that ideation, those tendencies to solve issues that way in past lives. And I did have a client who told me, I've never told anybody this, but that's how I feel right now. And it feels like that's always been my go-to. I'm just not going to be here anymore. That doesn't have to be your go-to because now you're aware of that. You can change that. You can get the help that you need for that. Same thing with lack of confidence. And when you go back and when you talk to somebody from a past life, when you talk to your former self, you can ask yourself questions and your former self will tell you, this is what you need to do. This is what you don't need to do. You need to enjoy this. You need to spend more time here. They will tell you, they will guide you because they don't want you to continue to repeat that cycle, that they don't want you to continue to experience that trauma. Because sometimes I feel like it's a comfort zone for some of us. Divine Mother always says that, suffering is a choice. And I've suffered by choice. I think a lot of us have. I know I'm not supposed to be eating red sauce. I ate lasagna 4 days in a row and had terrible heartburn for like a week. Sometimes suffering is a choice. And once you've delved into your past lives and identified that past life trauma, it is up to you as to whether or not you're going to continue that in your next cycle, or if we're going to fix it now. We're going to fix it now so that my future timeline can be better. Or maybe I'm going to ascend in this timeline because I've done everything that I need to do. But we don't have to suffer. We don't have to suffer with that past life trauma. And when people talk about generational trauma, past life trauma is the same. And a lot of our generational trauma, believe it or not, is past life trauma. So that's why we applaud so loudly when we see somebody. We call them chain breakers. When they break that cycle, when they break the chains, when this family, their daughter didn't get pregnant as a teen, when everybody else did. This family, this kid went to college and nobody else did. This kid did that. We celebrate the chain breakers because the chain breakers are our hope for the future. So if you break the chains of your generational trauma and your past life trauma, you're not only the hope for other people's future, you're the hope for your own future. You're the hope for your own lifetime and any timeline you participate in going forward. And, you know, I'm going to pause here because if anyone has any questions, I'd like to pause and answer those right now. And has anyone ever had, you know, a past life experience where they were able to identify traumas that they've been through before? And right, Goddess Iman said breaking those chains opens the pathway to new possibilities. And absolutely it does. It absolutely does, because if we know that something is wrong and we don't fix it, it was our choice to suffer through the rest of our lifetimes. And when you have an assignment and you don't finish it, just because you've passed on in this life doesn't mean your next self is not going to be given that exact same assignment. That homework is just going to keep going on and on and on until you finish it. You've got to fix it. There's just nothing else that you need to be focused on besides making sure that this lifetime is your best lifetime. And then Cece says she experienced deja vu just the other day. Yeah, and I did too. And I think that's when I realized that it was actually one of my past selves actually seeing into a future that wasn't even on their plane. Because when I had that experience and I was like, wow, why do I know this? Why do I feel like I've been here before? Why do I feel like I've seen this before? It's almost like having a dream and you're waking up from that dream, but all of a sudden you have all of the background information that wasn't necessarily even in that dream. You have memories from the person that you were in that dream, and you're like, how do I know that? Why is that so vivid? Those are all messages, and sometimes our past selves can come and talk to us in our dreams from situations that we're having in that dream. And it's really crazy about how the memories are, because the memories are so vivid, and you're like, well, how do I know she had $5 in her closet and 2 pairs of shoes in the corner? Why would I know that? Because you've been there before, because you've lived that before, because that's information that you're supposed to have. And I know that these talks are supposed to be like an hour. And I've been talking for like maybe 15 or 16 minutes. And I'm not a long talker and I'm not long-winded. I'm one of those people who I speak and I get to the meat of what I'm trying to say, and then I'm done. So I do want to open this up for anyone who's had experiences to speak and talk about your experience either with past life or what you suspect some of your past life trauma could have been. So I do want to open the floor for other people's to talk and give their point of view.
I'll go. Great day, everyone.
Hey, Granada.
I don't think it's so much as a past life. I think more so mine's is more of an ancestral experience I had. My grandmother's father was lynched, and I think it was during one of the Hallows Eve ceremonies we did, I actually saw what occurred. So I took that as an indication to do the work to heal that side of the family of that trauma. And it was very vivid, just seeing like the fire and seeing him hanging there and all the things. And my mom, she actually told me, because my grandmother's youngest sister took my mom to the place where they did it. And when she described it to me, I was like, okay, yeah, that's where it happened. So I think for me, I have a lot of occurrences where ancestors have come to me in certain ways, and I know that's something I need to work on to help heal the family line. And that's been pretty cool to do.
Thank you for sharing that, Coronado. And that is something that's worth bringing up, because a lot of times our ancestral trauma, and especially for us Black people, people with a lot of melanin, you know, there's a lot of ancestral trauma there, and there are some things that we don't want to imagine. There are things that we don't want to feel, but it is necessary for the healing. And like you said, Coronado, of your family, my grandmother, my father's mother, that's how close this was. My daddy's mama, she was, one of the people who fled Tulsa, Oklahoma during the 1921 race massacre. And there was a time where I was asked to contribute to an anthology of stories and poems commemorating that event, but also talking about what we want to do in the future to move forward and to educate people on what happened. And I remember writing a poem about her. Her name was Ruth. And I wrote a poem just entitled Ruth. And as I was writing that poem, I started experiencing the terror and the trauma and the fear that she felt during that event. Because my grandmother, and she was maybe 5 years old when this happened, but they had cousins that had heard what was going on. They had come up to get the family and take them to another town, Muskogee. And as they were in the car getting ready to leave, 3 or 4 armed white men surrounded the car, pointing guns at them, asking them where they were going. My grandmother said that one of the men had a bayonet, that gun that has a sword at the end of it. And can you imagine a 5-year-old little girl with a gun in her face as she's trying to get away from the devastation that's coming? And my grandmother got so scared that she actually jumped out of the car, took off running into the chaos. And as I'm writing this poem, I'm feeling everything that she went through, all of the terror. I could hear her mother running after her, screaming her name, telling her to come back, that they needed to get to safety. The family had to leave them there. The family didn't know what happened to them. They ended up cowering and hiding all night long. And then the next morning, the Red Cross found them and picked them up, took them to the fairgrounds where a lot of survivors were being held until somebody could come and claim them. The people who were coming to claim them were white men and women who those survivors actually worked for. I can claim her, she's my maid. This, that, other. There were, I do get emotional talking about that. There were things stolen, there were houses burned down. My grandmother's house was burned down. And that is a generational trauma that I am still trying to get over, because that house was rebuilt. And I remember spending time in that house. I remember spending the night. I remember sitting on the couch that had the plastic on it, sitting on the porch, eating watermelon. Like, I remember all of that from my childhood. But I also remember the day that my grandmother, and that's the house she was born in, the house my daddy was born in. I remember the day that we went to help my grandmother move out of that house because the city wanted to build a highway. And a lot of people don't know that there was a highway built over Greenwood, the Greenwood district. And a lot of things were torn down, the movie theater and things like that. And so they were going to build this highway. And so my grandmother had to move. She had to move away from that house that she'd known her entire life since she was born, and the house that she raised all of her children in. And guess what? They never built the highway through there. So it stood as an empty lot for years and years and years and years and years. And now someone else's house sits there. And so, that was our legacy. And that legacy, part of our legacy is gone. Somebody else's house sits on that land now. And she was forced to leave. So that's the kind of trauma that we're trying to get over. We're fighting like hell to get over this kind of trauma. And I can tell you that it was revealed to me that I was, in a past life, my ancestor, Lainey Colbert. And pardon my dog if you can hear her in the background. Lainey Colbert was born enslaved. Her mother was part Cherokee, part Black, and she was also an interpreter, a Chickasaw interpreter. And she knew Chickasaw, I think she knew Choctaw and Cherokee. They were all, on the Trail of Tears. And she had two little girls, and these little girls were the daughters of the Chickasaw chief, the chief of the Chickasaw tribe. And their names were Lainey and Lydia. But because their mother was enslaved, those children took on the identity of their mother. They were also enslaved. But that Chickasaw chief said, hey, because their mother, that Dinah, belonged to his friend, James Gunn. I want you to free my little girls. He did not ask for the mother to be freed. He only asked for the little girls to be freed. The little girls were freed. There's paperwork, signed, sealed paperwork, and it's even in his will, in case something happened to him, that those little girls were free. Well, when James, the owner, died, his family took Lydia and Lainey and sold them back into slavery, as if they had never been freed. And that's a type of betrayal and trauma that pretty unforgivable. And that Chickasaw chief cared so much about his daughters and his grandchildren at that time that he went and he got them and he brought them back. And he said, no, they are free. And it wasn't the first or the last time that anyone from that family was kidnapped and sold into slavery. And every single time, someone would go and claim them and say, no, they are free. So let's fast forward, because now this Chickasaw chief, their father, has passed on. And Lainey and Lydia fought for their Chickasaw citizenship until they died. They both were, I believe, over 100 when they died, and they fought for that citizenship their entire lives. I've seen the paperwork. They were listed as Cherokee freedmen, and they were told that even if you could prove that he was your father, we still would not allow you citizenship into our tribe because you are Negro. So let that type of generational trauma sink in, because of the fact that later on down the line, the Cherokee tribe actually tried to kick the freedmen out. And a lot of tribes are, trying to kick the freedmen out. Some of them have succeeded. Some of them have reneged a little bit on that. But the fact that she was the daughter of the chief, and the chief was half Scottish because his father came from Scotland and became their chief, married into the tribe and became their chief. And so when I realized that and I started diving into it and actually going back and reliving that, it made me angry. And it made me angry for what could have been for that branch of my family. They could have had the help that they needed. They could have had, just the recognition of belonging, but instead they were treated as outsiders. And so I have a lot of family that are bitter to this day about how that all went down. But I decided that I cannot be bitter about that anymore because I can't change it. I can't go back and change that. The only thing that I can do is go forward and talk about Lainey. And I can talk about Lydia. And I can talk about what they went through. And because the more that we talk about things, the less likely it is to happen again. And Lainey, when I asked her what I needed to know, I was told that all of the family's magic rested in me, and that she'd been waiting for me to be born, and that she was excited and that she was happy that I had come into my gifts, because as she told me, I was the family's hope. I was her hope. A lot of us were hearing things and feeling things and seeing things, and we were told, oh, no, that's just your imagination. A lot of us had imaginary friends that may have been souls, but we were told it was just our imagination and to quit talking to that person in the corner. You know, a lot of us were not encouraged to tap into our gifts because those gifts were scary to them. And then we learned to fear those gifts. So a lot of us didn't really fully come full circle into those gifts until adulthood. And now all of a sudden, oh my God, I remember that time I saw all those lights in the backyard. I remember that time I heard angels singing. Those really were angels. Those really were lights. Those really were people talking to me. Like everything starts to make sense. And you wonder, what would my life look like if I had the self-awareness then that I have now? If I grew up with that self-awareness, if I grew up in a family where that was celebrated and encouraged and taught to me, wow. Reading, knowing about the crystals. I used to pick rocks up all the time as a kid. All the time I would pick these rocks up and I would keep them and I would give them names. It was really crazy. Back then I had all, and I was collecting crystals. I liked being outside barefoot. I would walk around everywhere barefoot. I liked having my feet in the dirt. Every time I'm leaving Tulsa and driving and headed to Oklahoma City or Texas, the grass gets, not the grass, but the dirt gets redder and deeper red. The further you go south, the further you go south. And every time I see that dirt, I just want to pull over the car and roll around in it. That's me loving the earth. Ever since I was a little girl, just loving the earth, the way it feels, the way it smells. Sometimes I'll be like, I wonder what it tastes like. And I never did because I didn't want people to think I was nuts. But when I was pregnant, I craved red clay dirt when I was pregnant. I never ate it, but I craved the red clay dirt. And I wanted the red clay dirt from home. I was born in Tishomingo, Oklahoma. I wanted the red clay dirt from there. And so everything starts to make sense when you realize who you are and what you can do. I was in my 40s before I knew about me. And I didn't have the confidence then to fully embrace it because I didn't want people thinking I was crazy. And I hadn't visited a past life yet. And the first time I did visit a past life, I wasn't even trying to. I was standing in my backyard barefoot, just staring. And all of a sudden, in front of my face, I see gold. And the gold is just, it's moving. It's moving back and forth in front of my face. And the more I stare at it, the more I realize this is cloth. This is someone standing in front of me. This is someone breathing in front of me. And they're really tall and they're really big. And there's this intricate gold garment, beautiful gold garment that they're wearing. And for some reason, I am not scared. I am excited. I am happy. What's going on? And I was in the temple of Anubis. And I was so locked into that trance. Later on, my husband told me that he'd come outside to say goodbye to me because he was going somewhere and he felt like I didn't hear him. And he realized that I was meditating or something. You was doing that stuff you do. So I just went ahead and left. But I was so heavily in that trance that I was not aware of anything going on outside of where I was in that moment because I was actually experiencing that life through the eyes of my former self. Her name was Solara, and she was in the temple of Anubis, and she was a human sacrifice. And that's very important to note that she was a human sacrifice because Anubis is one of my spirit guides. And when I found out that Anubis was one of my spirit guides, I was kind of scared because I was like, that's kind of scary because isn't he like God of death? Like, does this mean I'm going to die? You know, what does this mean? And I just remember the Divine Mother telling me, no, don't be afraid. It's not, I know that they talk about death with Anubis, but that's not what this is. But, you know, you still have those little doubts because, again, I didn't know who I was yet completely. And so as I'm in this moment of being sacrificed, and once the sacrifice is over, I wake up and I hear a voice in my ear saying, do you see now? Because one of the messages that Anubis had for me when he channeled through Divine Mother Monica was that he didn't want to talk to me through her. He was going to talk to me directly. And then all he said was, tell her she will see my work. And so when he spoke to me that day that I had that past life experience, he said, do you see my work now? He said, you've already served me with your death. Now you're going to serve me in life. And so that was a full circle moment for me. And that's when I really started to live in my power. I wasn't fully out loud yet, but I was living in my power in private, in the privacy of my own home. I was living in my power, and I was tiptoeing and walking on eggshells around everybody else. But then one day I just decided that that wasn't enough for me, that things that I was excited about spiritually, I had a right to share with other people the same way that they had a right to share with me what happened at church today or what happened at school today. I had that same right to share my excitement, and I felt like I was being stifled. And I was accused of witchcraft, and I was accused of being demonic. And my sisters, they would call me every night and read me Bible verses. And one night they called me and I said, look, I don't want to talk to y'all if I'm going to have Bible study every time you call my phone. And they got offended, but they did stop calling me with those Bible verses. So now they are, okay, they know that that's who I am, but they don't want to talk about it. And that's fine, because I don't want to talk about it with you, because I want to talk about it with someone who can appreciate what I'm saying, who can understand the experience, and who can be happy and excited with me or help me figure things out or answer those kind of questions. And that's the best thing about Mystic Temple and Mystic University. And that is by far the community that I want to be in, the community that I belong to. And if you'll notice now, a lot of people are waking up. A lot of people are acknowledging those past life experiences. A lot of people are acknowledging that deja vu. A lot of people are acknowledging that maybe something else is out there. And people are starting to live out loud. And I'm proud of anybody, anybody who can put their fear to the side and decide, you know what, I think I'm going to just be me. And I'm going to be me outside. I'm going to be me inside. I'm going to be me wherever I go. And I don't have to feel guilty for telling you, no, I don't want to visit your church. I don't have to come up with all these excuses. I don't have to excuse who I am, because they can either handle it or they can't. I'm here for myself, but I'm also here for them. I'm also here for their greater good. This is a worldwide thing that we're doing here. But not everybody's going to be able to come with us. And that's just the truth. And that's the truth in all things. Not everybody can come with you where you are going, because where you are going requires truth. And a lot of people are ready for the truth. And that's just it. That is just it. The pastor said you were cutting into his prophets. I've heard that, but not quite in that way. But yes, because why am I giving all of my money to a church when I can't feed my kids? You know, those were questions that I had when I was out there struggling with 2 kids and no child support and nobody to help me, and losing my house and all of that. And that's a whole nother thing. I don't want to go off on a tangent. And I don't want to move away from, you know, the past life regression and the generational trauma and things like that. But, you know, speaking of trauma, that's something that I learned from church. I'm not against anybody's church. If that's what you want to do, I love it for you. It's not what I want to do. The story of Job, when I was going through all of my hardships, I just kept being reminded of the story of Job. Well, you know, Job, all his kids died and a tornado came and all his cattle died and his houses burned down. But you know what? He still believed in God. And then God gave him back everything that he had lost. He got a new wife. He got some new kids. He got some new cows. He got a new house. I don't want no new house. I don't want no new cows. I don't want no new kids. I want the ones I had before. Why did you take those from me? Because what people don't, when they're telling you all about what Job went through and how he kept the faith, they don't really tell you that it was basically a dare between God and Satan to say, hey, I bet you can do anything. I'm gonna let you do anything you want to do to Job. He's still gonna be loyal to me. Ain't nothing you can do to this man to make him curse my name. I dare you. I double dare you. Satan did his thing. And then Job remained faithful, and then he got all these new things, but I don't want new kids. I like the ones I had. I like the ones I have. I want to continue with this family. I don't want to be beholden to somebody who would allow that to happen to me and then be like, clean yourself up. Here you go. Because that's the kind of trauma. Nobody talked about the trauma that Job was going through when all that was happening. That man wasn't just saying, oh, God, my kids are dead, but I still love you. Was he really? Or is that just what we've been told? Because somebody took all my kids. I tell you what, it would be some furniture moving. Some furniture moving. What they say, flower bringing and low singing. Because I'm not standing for that. And I'm not going to be calm. And I'm not going to sit and wait to be rescued. I'm not going to do it. And so, yeah, I did go off on a tangent. My bad, y'all. But that just, that kind of suffering is unnecessary. And we don't have to suffer like that. Will bad things happen? Yeah, bad things are going to happen. We can get through it. We can say, okay, this bad thing is happening. I have a plan. I need to get a plan. And what can I do to change this? Who can I reach out to? Because if I can't do it, somebody can. Who can I reach out to change this circumstance? Who can help me? You find the help, because there's helpers everywhere. And all of us are light workers. You don't have to be a light guardian to be a light worker, but you can be working in the dark too, because sometimes that darkness is needed. And you can't have light without the darkness. They go together real bad. So I think that the lesson, and yeah, Goddess in mind, the shadows balance the light. And that's exactly right. Have any of you ever heard of The Last Poets? Prolific poetry with the bongos and the music. My dad used to listen to him. He had all the albums when I was a little girl. I had the pleasure of meeting them. I used to be a spoken word poet, and I had the pleasure of meeting them and seeing them perform live, and it was electric. And I'll never forget, we got to just sit in a circle on the floor with Abiodun. And Abiodun was speaking, and after seeing his performance, and after sitting and seeing him, just how passionate he was, I felt like I wasn't doing enough, because I wrote love poems. I wrote the lovey-dovey, kissy-kissy poems. He was like Black Power and militant, and I felt like I wasn't doing enough, like my stuff didn't matter. And so I spoke up and I said that to him, and he looked at me and he said, we need your love, because your love balances out the hate. And I've always held on to that. I didn't have to change who I was to belong, because who I was balanced out everything else. He's like, we need those lovey-dovey love poems. When he said that to me, I just couldn't believe it. But when you have somebody that prolific and that powerful telling you, and then when they hear you do your poetry and they tell you, see, I told you we needed you. You don't always have to have outside validation, but it's great to have outside confirmation to tell you why you're here and why you are who you are. So my suggestion to everyone, if you have never done past life regression, definitely look into it. But also, if you have generational trauma that you feel needs to be healed, look into that too. Look into that and see how you can help your family move forward, so that the next generation can live better than the last generation and the generation before that. Every generation should be better than the last. And that's the same thing with your past lives. Your current timeline should have more progress than your last timeline. And your next timeline should have more progress than this one. So I am Light Guardian Ebony, and I appreciate you all listening to me talk. I don't think I've ever talked for this long in my life. But I really appreciate you all listening to me and just embracing me as a life guardian. So thank you.
Thank you, Ebony. That was amazing. And I'm sure we all had a lot of additional wisdom, insight, and information coming through today, and what will continue to come through, more insights. So yes, make sure that past life trauma is cleared, cleaned up, so you can continue to rise in this lifetime. And everyone, again, we're going to be doing these Light Guardian talks, the LG talks, monthly, with a different Light Guardian each month, bringing you more wisdom, more knowledge to aid and assist you on your journey. Because again, we are here to uplift humanity. We are here to usher in this new age of spirituality that is rooted in truth, that is growing and flourishing in truth. So stay connected. Stay elevated. Make sure that you join our virtual sanctuary on Telegram. We have the links in the chat right now. There's also a mailing list that you all can tap into, so you know when the next LG talks are coming, when we have Sacred Rhythm Fast and different events. Follow us on all the social medias and know that you can always tap into any of the Mystic Temple content through the mysticcircletv.com, through the mobile app, apps on the TV, Roku, Samsung TV. We are everywhere, and we are here to continue to aid and assist you. So your journey doesn't end here. Make sure you stay connected, stay empowered, and keep rising. Until next time, y'all, be well and thrive.